Jessica never loved me, she only married me to get over Chase. But I didn't mind, I was dying, and I just wanted to spend my last days with her. The world saw a mismatched couple. She was the nation's darling, a red carpet goddess with a smile sharp enough to silence rooms. I was the man in her shadow, the one in hospital gowns, hiding trembling fingers and blood-stained tissues. They said I got lucky, that a man like me, with no looks, no charm, no legacy, had somehow trapped the brightest star in the sky. They weren't entirely wrong. Her name stayed glued to trending searches while mine was used in hashtags like #PityHusband or worse, #UglyStarLeech. Every time a new photo of Jessica surfaced, laughing at a gala, dancing in a crimson gown, commenters tore into me. Why hasn't she dumped that skeleton yet? He's dragging her career down. She's glowing, he looks like he's on his deathbed. That part was true. I never told Jessica about my diagnosis. She hated hospitals, she hated blood, she hated talking about death. So I kept quiet, wiping my nosebleeds in secret, hiding pills in teacups, smiling through the migraines. She thought I was just weak, someone who always needed care, but I didn't care what she thought, as long as I could hold her hand a little longer. Then one night, she didn't come home. I should have expected it. My phone buzzed, notifications piling up. Photos of Jessica in that familiar red dress, the one she wore the first time I saw her on screen, now wrapped around her curves again as she laughed beside Chase. He was back, the one she never stopped dreaming of, the one she married me to forget. They looked perfect together in the flashing lights. He in a velvet suit, wine in hand. Her smile brighter than I'd seen in months. My fingers trembled as I scrolled, a sharp sting pierced my temple. I reached for a tissue just as blood dripped hot down my lip. I tilted my head back, trying to catch my breath. Not now, please, not now. A call came through. It was Sophia, her manager. Jessica's drunk, come get her, she said quickly. She's at W37, she's not doing well. I wiped the blood from my face, changed into the cleanest clothes I could find, and grabbed my keys. Every step to the car felt like walking through molasses. My head throbbed, my legs felt hollow. But she needed me, that was all that mattered. When I arrived at the bar, I pushed through the crowd, ignoring stares, ignoring whispers. And there she was, Jessica, curled up on a leather couch in the back, red heels kicked off, her head resting against Chase's shoulder. His arm was around her waist like it belonged there. My heart didn't break, it simply stopped. Froze in place. Jessica, I said softly, but Chase turned first. He gave me that same smirk he always did in school, the one he used right before tearing my homework in half. Oh, you actually came, he said, voice thick with mockery. I thought you'd grown used to being replaced. I ignored him. I bent down and lifted Jessica into my arms, careful not to wake her. Her head lolled against my shoulder, her breath warm against my collarbone. She smelled like wine and perfume, and something else, his cologne. I'm here, I whispered, let's go home. In the car, she stirred, her lashes fluttered open just long enough to see me. Ethan, she mumbled, you always come. I smiled faintly. Of course. To the world, I was the weak man she pitied. But to me, even if I only had months left, even if she never loved me, I got to be the one to take her home. I wasn't always the sickly man hiding bloodied tissues behind my back. There was a time when my name meant something. Ethan Lancaster, the real son of the Lancaster Group, heirs to one of the country's oldest private banking dynasties. Born into legacy, destined for power. But I never lived any of that. Because I was lost before I turned 4. No one ever figured out how or why. One moment I was at the estate with a nanny, the next I was standing barefoot in an alley, holding a stuffed fox that smelled like ash and bread. The orphanage took me in. They named me Ethan because I wouldn't speak for the first few months, and the name was written on the label of my coat. The rest was silence, until I met her. Jessica was crying in the middle of the street. 7 years old, a pink unicorn sewn into the back of her dress. Some woman tried to drag her away by the wrist, and she screamed for help. I was 9, scrawny, smaller than most kids, already accustomed to getting beaten with broomsticks by the older boys. But that day I ran toward her, shoved the woman away with all my weight and shouted, "You're not her mom!" I took Jessica's hand and ran. For 2 hours, we wandered through streets looking for someone who could help. She told me about her mom's store, about the unicorn, about how she got separated. I remembered the alleys near the flower shops and guided her back by smell and instinct. When we found her mother, frantic, shaking, I gave Jessica a thumbs up and said, "Told you I'm your miracle brother." She promised she'd never forget me. But years passed, and she did. I stayed in the orphanage until I was 14. Life there was predictable. Cold winters, watery soup, the same pair of shoes for 3 years. I didn't have much, but I had books. I read everything. By 15, I was topping regional exams. I didn't know why I could memorize entire pages or do calculus in my head, but it was my only way out. That's when Chase entered my life. He was everything I wasn't: confident, stylish, loud, but beneath it all, he was scared of being second best. And I made him feel that way. Every test, every award, every ranking, my name came first. He made sure I paid for that in silence: water in my shoes, glue on my chair, ruined assignments, bruises where teachers wouldn't see. No one stopped him. The school knew his family name, the Lancasters. I didn't realize the irony until much later. One afternoon during a mandatory health screening, the doctor paused. He took my blood samples again, then a third time. His brow furrowed. "You have a rare hereditary disorder," he muttered. "But this bloodline, it matches someone." That same week, I stole a strand of hair from Mrs. Lancaster, the woman who came to fund our school's scholarship program. I ran a private test. The results came in. 99.97% match. I was Ethan Lancaster, and Chase was the imposter. I didn't feel joy. I felt hollow. Everything made sense: the way he looked at me, the way he tried to break me. He knew, maybe not at first, but somewhere along the line, he figured it out, and so did I. But I didn't want the family name, not if it meant going back to a house that left me behind. So I made a deal with Chase, one I regret now. He would give up Jessica, disappear overseas, and I would never claim the Lancaster name. We'd erase everything. He agreed, without hesitation. He always chose power over love. A month later, Jessica showed up at my door, eyes swollen, pride shattered. "He left," she said, voice cracking. "He just left a note, that's it." I didn't know what to say. She collapsed in my arms. For 10 minutes, she cried. Then, with hands trembling, she took the ring off her finger, the one Chase gave her, and pressed it into my palm. "I'm done being someone's afterthought." She slid her grandmother's wedding band onto my finger. "Let's get married," she whispered. I should have said no, but my heart said yes before my brain could catch up. That's how Jessica Hayes became Jessica Lancaster, and I became the man everyone called the stand-in husband. The first 6 months were cold. She barely spoke. I made her tea every morning. She never drank it. She slept with her back turned. I didn't mind. I told myself that warmth comes slowly when someone's been burned. A year passed. Things changed. Jessica started making breakfast. Her scrambled eggs were terrible, but I ate every bite. She brought home souvenirs from shoots, keychains, notebooks, silly pens shaped like pineapples. "I saw it and thought of you," she'd say, laughing. She began sitting closer on the couch. When I'd cough, she'd rush to bring water. One rainy night, I found her trying to cook soup after watching a tutorial for hours. It was burnt, and she cried. "I just wanted to make something for your stomach," she sobbed. "You always look like you're in pain after eating." That night, she fell asleep on my chest. She started refusing roles that required kissing scenes. She posted less online. Once, I caught her Googling how to raise a child with low immunity. I didn't bring it up, but she left the tab open on purpose. When she asked me quietly if I wanted kids, I couldn't answer, not with what I knew. Because 1 month before our 3rd anniversary, my condition took a turn. My organs were weakening, my body was failing. I would die within the year. The doctors were firm. Chemotherapy would only delay, not cure. So I did what I'd always done. I smiled, and I lied. Jessica still didn't know. I hid the hospital reports. I passed off nosebleeds as sinus issues. When she wasn't looking, I injected painkillers into my thighs to dull the aches. When she asked why I seemed tired, I blamed insomnia. I told her not to worry. Because if she knew, she'd leave. Not because she's cruel, but because Jessica's terrified of death. She's run from it all her life. Her mother died young, her father vanished, everyone she's ever trusted abandoned her, so I knew, if she found out, she'd bolt before the ending, so she wouldn't have to watch me disappear. And I wanted to stay with her until the last moment, but fate doesn't wait. Chase came back, no announcement, no apology. One day he was just there, dressed in imported suits, shaking hands with producers, smiling for paparazzi like he hadn't vanished with her heart years ago. Jessica changed after that. She started checking her phone more, coming home later, her smile faded, she stopped making soup. The media ate it up. Old flame returns. Chase and Jessica, rekindling? Where's the husband? I stayed quiet, I didn't ask questions. Because I knew the answer. And I was already dying. The invitation came on a Tuesday, a sleek black envelope embossed in gold, delivered to our apartment like a royal summons. Jessica stood by the door flipping it over in her hand, her expression unreadable. You want to go to this? I asked, setting down my tea. It's just a party, she replied casually. Some producers, some networking. Sophia said it'll be good for press. I didn't ask if Chase would be there. I should have. That Friday night, Jessica stepped out of the bedroom wearing a white satin dress that shimmered under the chandelier. Her hair was pinned to the side, a diamond clip just above her ear. She looked ethereal, untouchable. She glanced at me in my gray suit, tailored but loose from recent weight loss, and frowned slightly. Let me fix your collar, she said. Her fingers brushed my neck, her perfume hit me like a wave. I smiled faintly. You always make me feel like I belong in your world. She didn't respond, just smoothed my lapel and turned away. The venue was a rooftop lounge in Midtown, bathed in amber light and strung with fairy lights like a scene from a movie. The moment we stepped out of the elevator, heads turned, whispers flared. That's Jessica, right? She brought her husband? I thought they were splitting. No way, she downgraded from Chase to him? Laughter, soft but piercing. My hand instinctively found Jessica's. She flinched at first, but then intertwined her fingers with mine. Whether it was real or for the cameras, I didn't know. I just held on. Then I saw him. Chase. Holding a whiskey glass like a trophy, surrounded by moneyed men in suits and women trying too hard to laugh at his jokes. His smile was effortless, but the second his eyes landed on us, on Jessica's hand in mine, he choked mid-sip. His jaw clenched, the mask cracked. Jessica saw it too, she stiffened but didn't let go. Chase turned back to his group, laughing louder than necessary, downing the rest of his drink in one throw. He poured another before the waiter could even move. Another round, he barked, already flushed. Jessica tugged at my arm. Let's sit. We made our way to a corner booth, away from the spotlight, but that didn't stop people from circling. A producer stopped by, eyeing me briefly before turning to Jessica. Didn't expect to see you two here together. Jessica smiled politely. Why wouldn't we be? The woman chuckled, sipping her champagne. Well, you know, things change, people come back. She glanced toward Chase, who was now dancing with a woman he didn't care about. Old flames, new sparks. Jessica's grip tightened on my wrist. We're fine, she said coldly. The woman raised her hands in mock surrender and floated away. I leaned closer to Jessica. You don't have to defend me. I'm not defending you, she whispered. I'm defending us. I wanted to believe her. Then a silence fell over the party. Chase was standing on a table, a drink in one hand, a wild smile on his face. Let's play a game, he shouted. 1 cup for me, 10 for you, you drink, I invest. Laughter erupted. A man nearby joined in. Didn't you date Jessica once? Why don't you ask her to fund your company instead? Yeah, someone else added. Maybe she'll go for the nostalgia. More laughter. I saw Chase's eyes flicker, and then, without warning, he leapt off the table, crossed the room, and stopped a few feet in front of us. He looked at Jessica, then at me, and knelt. Gasps. Chase's voice trembled, half from drink, half from something else. 3 years ago, I was an idiot. I left you for ambition. I thought I could come back and pick up where I left off. But seeing you two together. I realize I lost something real. Jessica's nails dug into my palm. I'm not kneeling for investment, Chase said, still looking at her. I'm kneeling because I hurt the only woman I ever loved. The room went dead quiet. I could feel my pulse in my ears, my vision blurred for a second. I forced a steady breath, even as a familiar trickle started behind my nose. Not now, not here. Jessica stood slowly, pulling me up with her. This isn't a drama set, Chase. He looked up, eyes red. It was never a game for me. She shook her head. You left me. Ethan stayed. We walked out without another word, but the damage was already done. Later that night, while Jessica showered, I checked my phone. Her account was silent, no posts, no captions, nothing. But Chase, he wasn't so quiet. A new photo had gone viral. Jessica, asleep on a couch, her face half hidden by her arm. The caption read, "Some habits never fade, some love never leaves." The comments exploded. Chase X Jessica forever. Their chemistry is unreal. She looks so peaceful around him. Kick that sickly husband already. Chase deserves her. That Ethan guy, he looks like her assistant. Then came the photo comparisons. Me, in the corner of an older image, thin, pale, beside a radiant Jessica. Then Chase, arm around her waist at a past premiere, both glowing under stage lights. The difference was stark, the comments were cruel. I didn't reply, I didn't even scroll further. I just got up, walked to the bathroom mirror, and stared at myself. Blood ran from my left nostril. I wiped it away. Jessica came in, hair wrapped in a towel. Hey, everything okay? I smiled. Just tired. She kissed my cheek and walked past. I watched her go. To the world, I was the joke, the placeholder. But in that moment, she still kissed me goodnight. And for reasons I couldn't explain, that still meant everything. The internet didn't just hate me, it wanted me gone. Ugly loser husband, no match for a star, die already. I scrolled until my fingers trembled too much to hold the phone. One post had a comparison photo, Jessica and Chase, glowing on a movie set years ago, under a golden spotlight. Next to it, me, hunched over at a cafe, my face caught mid-cough, bones visible through my clothes. The caption read, "When she settled for the intern after the CEO left." Another had a video loop of Jessica wiping lipstick off her cheek after I kissed her on a red carpet last year. I remembered that night. She was nervous, hadn't wanted to look clingy in public. But they didn't care. The video was edited with clown music. Laughter emojis flooded the replies. I dropped the phone. The room was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator and the faint click of the wall clock. 3:11 a.m. Jessica still wasn't home. I had messaged her 3 hours ago, then again, no reply. My stomach ached, I hadn't eaten since morning. I stood up, dizzy, made it 2 steps before everything tilted sideways, my hands reached for the counter, missed, and I collapsed hard on the floor. Pain radiated through my ribs, I coughed and blood sprayed across the linoleum, nose, mouth, chest. It didn't matter anymore, I reached for a tissue but my fingers twitched and stopped, my arms felt heavy. The door burst open minutes later. Marco. He looked like hell, hair messy, shirt half tucked, panic in his eyes. Ethan? I tried to speak, only a dry wheeze came out. Jesus Christ! He crouched beside me, lifting me up with trembling arms. Why didn't you call me? What the hell is this? I didn't remember the drive, only the beeping of machines. Sterile white light, nurses rushing around my bed, the smell of antiseptic. And then, silence. When I woke, it was raining outside, a soft patter against the window. Marco sat beside me, phone in hand, rage simmering beneath his exhaustion. His voice was raw. You almost died, Ethan. You were bleeding out alone like a damn ghost. She wasn't even home. I didn't say anything, I just stared at the IV drip. He leaned in. Why are you still doing this? What are you waiting for? I closed my eyes. The door opened again. Jessica. She was soaked, her hair hung in dripping strands down her back, mascara streaked down her cheeks, her hands trembled as she clutched the doorframe. Ethan. I looked at her. She looked scared. I smiled gently. I'm fine. Marco stood up, backing away, giving her space he didn't want to. Jessica ran to my side and dropped to her knees beside the bed. I didn't know. I didn't. Chase called. He said he'd been in an accident. I panicked. I left to see if he was. She stopped. But I didn't know you were. I said I'm fine, I repeated softly. She cried harder. Marco walked out of the room, fists clenched. I turned my face to the window. The rain blurred the city lights. I didn't know how long I stayed in that daze, hours maybe, long enough that the doctors came, asked questions I barely heard. I answered them all the same, I'm okay. Jessica eventually fell asleep in the chair. I turned away. That night, I thought about the deal I made with Chase 3 years ago. He was the one with the fake name, the adopted heir, the polished image of the Lancaster legacy. But I had the blood, the name, the truth. I found out by accident, through that hereditary disease only one bloodline in the world carried, mine. And when I confronted Chase, when I offered him the choice, he didn't hesitate. He would leave, vanish overseas, and I would let him keep the Lancaster title. In return, he'd let go of Jessica. He'd end it without a scene, without questions. He agreed instantly. Money mattered more to him than love ever could. Jessica never knew. She never knew that I had watched her cry in the library for a week, that I was the one who made him disappear, that I took the backlash, the judgment, the pity, all just to give her a clean break. I didn't care how I looked, I only wanted her peace. But now Chase was back, and he wasn't here for peace. He wanted everything, his name, his company, his girl, and the internet was eating it up like a fairy tale reunion. I laid back on the hospital bed and stared at the ceiling, trying not to feel anything. The door opened again. Marco returned, this time, with a duffel bag over his shoulder and fire in his eyes. Come with me, he said. I didn't answer. He dropped the bag on the table. We leave tomorrow. Tibet. You always said that's where you wanted to go, the mountains, the sky, the place your grandmother talked about. I looked at him. I can't. You can, he snapped. You just won't. You're waiting for her to finally look back. You're dying for a woman who's already made her choice. How many more nosebleeds, how many more breakdowns, until you realize she was never going to choose you? She kissed me last night, I murmured. She still comes home. She held my hand. Marco exhaled sharply. Because you're safe, you're the hospital bed. She crawls into after getting burned. You're the man she needs, until Chase calls. I didn't say anything. You deserve more than this, he said, softer now. You've always deserved more. I looked out the window again. The rain had stopped. Jessica stirred in her chair, mumbling in her sleep. I looked at her for a long time. And still, after everything, I whispered, maybe she'll come back. Marco didn't argue this time. He just walked to the corner, sat down, and waited. And so did I. The tide turned fast. One day, Jessica was trending as the nation's darling again, the woman torn between two men, a glittering icon in a red carpet love triangle. The next, she was trending as a traitor. Photos of her leaving Chase's apartment surfaced. The same paparazzi who once praised her now tore her to pieces. Married woman reignites flame with ex. Jessica cheating on sick husband. Scandal queen strikes again. But the backlash wasn't against her alone. It bled into my world too. Someone unearthed an old forum post claiming that years ago I forced Chase out of the country and stole Jessica while he was gone. No proof, just whispers, but it caught fire. People love a villain more than they love the truth. Then Chase did the unthinkable. He leaked the truth, but only half of it. Screenshots, a video clip, a single paragraph from a private agreement. In his version, I was the mastermind, the man who used my wealth and connections to push him overseas, who manipulated Jessica during her heartbreak, who replaced him like some twisted puppet master behind the curtain. No mention of the blood test, the real heir, the sacrifices, just a clean edited version that made me look like a predator. The internet lit up. So Ethan was the snake all along. No wonder she looks miserable. He guilt-trapped her into marriage. Homewrecker husband with a sob story. Disgusting. Jessica deserves better. She should have left years ago. That night, our address leaked. People showed up. They threw garbage over the gate, smashed eggs against the windows, spray-painted scum husband on the garage. Someone even left a coffin-shaped cake on the porch with a note, "If you won't die, we'll help." I stood behind the curtain, watching it all, silent, still. Marco came over that night, eyes bloodshot, fists shaking. "We need to call the cops." "No," I said. "What do you mean no? It'll only make it worse." He stared at me like I'd lost my mind. "Ethan, this isn't just gossip anymore, this is real. They want you dead." I didn't reply. He stormed out, came back with cleaning supplies. We scrubbed the front steps together in silence, but it didn't stop. A week later, I left to buy groceries. On the way back, someone in a hoodie walked past me, shoved something in my chest, then vanished. A second later, my body exploded in pain. A rock, blunt, heavy, straight to the ribs. I collapsed, blood pooling from my mouth. My vision went black before I could scream. I woke up in the hospital, again. Machines beeped beside me. My body felt like fire. A dull ache spread from my chest to my spine. Marco sat nearby, his hands trembling as he scrolled on his phone. Jessica wasn't there. I turned my head slowly toward the ceiling and stared until it stopped spinning. Marco eventually looked up. "They posted a video. The guy who hit you, he live-streamed it." I blinked. "It has 500,000 views already. They're calling it the scumbag husband takedown." I said nothing. "What do you want, Ethan?" Marco asked. "Seriously, what are you even waiting for now?" I stared at him. The answer was simple. I wanted to go home, but not to Jessica. To her, my grandmother. I closed my eyes and remembered her. Gray hair tied back in a red scarf, her cane tapping against the wooden floor, the way her hand trembled when she held mine. She was the only person who ever looked at me and saw Ethan, not a charity case, not a project, not a liability. She died trying to protect me. All these years, her ashes stayed in a sealed jar above the kitchen cabinet, waiting for me to be strong enough to keep my promise. I'd said it when I was 12. "I'll take you back to Tibet, Nai. I'll show you the sky again." I never did. Until now. "Marco," I whispered, voice barely audible. "Let's go." He looked up. "Go where?" "Tibet." For the first time in weeks, his face broke into something like a smile. "Are you serious?" I nodded slowly. His eyes reddened. "I'll pack. You just rest. We leave in 2 days." Jessica came home the next night. The apartment was quiet. She walked in, dropped her purse, and looked around. "Ethan?" she called. No answer. She moved from room to room. Empty. When she stepped into the bedroom, she saw the letter on the pillow. No drama, no accusations, just a single line. "I've gone to keep my promise." The next line was an address, coordinates to a monastery in Lhasa. She sank onto the bed and held the note in shaking hands. It didn't take long for her to realize what it meant. She checked the cabinet. The jar was gone. Her heart stuttered in her chest. Her knees gave out. She collapsed onto the floor, hands covering her mouth, eyes wide with panic. Her mind raced through every moment, every word, every time she looked away when I needed her to see me. She clutched the note tighter, whispering my name through broken sobs. "Ethan." But I was already gone. And this time, I wasn't coming back. I stepped onto Tibetan soil with a duffel bag, a jar of ashes, and a body that wasn't supposed to be moving anymore. The air was thinner here, colder, but it felt like breathing for the first time. I wrapped the scarf Nai once knitted around my neck, pulled my hat low, and looked toward the horizon. Snow stretched over mountains like silk, endless and ancient, and in the distance, the path began, Lhasa to Yamdrok Yumtso, 1,100 kilometers. I would walk it inch by inch, not because I had something to prove, but because I had something to finish. Marco offered to carry my bag, begged me to ride the van we hired, just in case. I refused. He didn't argue, he knew better than anyone. I only bent for Jessica, but I wasn't bending anymore. The first day was cruel. Wind burned my cheeks raw, My knees scraped against jagged stone after only 20 prostrations, my forehead bruised after 30. The blood from my nose came early, mixing with dirt, sweat, and prayers. I counted nothing, I only moved forward. By the second day, a hiker recognized me. The footage hit the internet within hours. A livestream titled, "Is That the Jessica Scandal Husband Prostrating in Tibet?" went viral. Millions tuned in. They laughed. Sympathy bait. Classic PR stunt, probably filming a documentary. If he can crawl that far, he can crawl back to his wife. I didn't look at the camera, I just kept moving. Every orphanage along the route, I stopped, quietly donated. No names, no photos, just envelopes sealed with a note, for the child who sits alone during dinner. More people started to follow the story, some mocked, others grew curious. When a young Tibetan boy asked me, "Why are your hands bleeding?" I answered, "To keep a promise." He walked beside me for a mile before his father called him home. I slept in monasteries, in tents, sometimes not at all. Marco walked silently beside me, carrying medicine, bandages, and anger in his steps. He never once told me to stop. He knew. I didn't come to live. I came to finish dying the way I chose. On day 7, everything changed. A medical worker who'd once treated me recognized me on the stream and wrote a long post online. She shared everything. That I was the real heir to the Lancaster group, that I grew up in an orphanage while my fake cousin inherited my name, that I had a terminal illness, that I was bullied, humiliated, beaten, that I kept it all secret just to protect one woman. Jessica. That I had never cheated, that I never even defended myself. The post included photos of me as a child, thin, bruised arms, reading alone in a hospital bed. A clip from a school surveillance tape showed Chase tripping me in the hallway and laughing as I bled from the nose. It was enough. The tide turned. People cried, people apologized. Millions. Hashtags like, #forgive Ethan, #miracle brother, #true hair trended globally. Someone even painted a mural of me near Patala Palace, kneeling beneath a mountain with blood on my palms and a prayer on my lips. Jessica saw it all, and she broke. She confronted Chase in the middle of a charity gala. The press was everywhere, cameras flashing, live streams running. Jessica walked up in silence and slapped him, hard, so hard his lips split open. "You lied to me, you humiliated him," she said, voice shaking. "You used me to destroy the only person who ever loved me." Chase wiped his mouth and sneered. "You think any of this matters? You were mine before him and you'll be mine again once he's gone." He reached for her. She stepped back. "Don't touch me." The crowd gasped. He tried again. She shoved him away. He grabbed her wrist and snarled something under his breath. A reporter caught it on camera. Jessica screamed. He slapped her. The room exploded. Security dragged him out as the audience cursed, booed, snapped photos like wild dogs. Jessica stood trembling, makeup smeared, one shoe missing. She took the mic. "I only ever loved Ethan," she said. The press froze. "If I lose my fans, my reputation, everything, I don't care, because he gave me everything and asked for nothing. I don't care how far I have to go, I'm going to find him." She boarded the first flight to Tibet that same night. No entourage, no press team, just her, a borrowed coat, and tear-stained eyes. She reached Lhasa 2 days later, asked the locals if they had seen a man with bandaged hands and tired eyes. A child pointed toward the path, whispering, "The miracle man." She ran. Her heels broke within the hour. She kicked them off. Snow bit at her skin. Her knees bled. Her face stung with cold. Still, she ran. Every step, she whispered my name. And I was still moving. My lips cracked, my hand swelled, my head pounded, but I saw the sky. Bluer than I imagined. And I smiled. Because for once, I wasn't being watched by paparazzi, judged by tabloids, or pitied by strangers. I was just a boy keeping a promise to the only woman who raised me. And that was enough. A shadow fell beside me as I reached the edge of a plateau. I thought it was Marco. But when I turned, it was her. Jessica. She was barefoot, shivering, her face blotched red from wind and tears. She fell to her knees in front of me. "Ethan," she choked. "Please, come home. You've proven everything. You don't have to do this anymore." I said nothing. She reached out, fingers trembling. I was wrong, about everything. I let him confuse me. I let the world twist what I knew in my heart. I never stopped loving you. I just didn't know how to say it until it was too late. I stared at her. My breath fogged in the air. She cried harder. "Come back. Let me take care of you this time. Please, I'll do everything. Just come back with me. Just look at me." I closed my eyes and whispered, "I already did everything, Jessica." She froze. "I walked through every place my grandmother spoke about. I gave what I had to children with nothing. I forgave people who spit on me, and I loved you, even when you didn't love me back." I opened my eyes again. "You came too late," she broke, screamed, begged, sobbed so loudly the wind stopped to listen. I gently placed my hand on her shoulder. "I'm glad you came," I said softly, "but I'm not coming back." The wind howled across the Namtso plains, but Ethan kept walking. His frame was smaller now, clothes hung off him like loose parchment, bandages wrapped around his palms were soaked through with blood and dust, and his lips were so cracked they bled when he smiled, but still, he smiled. Jessica watched from behind, silent, her coat wrapped tightly around her trembling figure. She had followed him ever since he told her he wouldn't come back. She never left his side. Not after the day he looked her in the eyes and said, "You came too late." They didn't talk much. He didn't need to say anything. He woke every morning, picked up where he left off, and continued to prostrate across the land his grandmother once dreamed of seeing again. Jessica watched him in silence, watched as strangers left offerings on the trail for him, watched as monks murmured blessings beneath their breath, watched as little children whispered, "He's the miracle man." But on the 39th day, as the sun broke open over the horizon, Ethan stumbled near the lake. The golden light glistened across the still water, the sky reflecting back so perfectly it was like standing in two heavens at once. But Ethan's knees buckled, his body trembled violently, breath short, pupils unfocused, blood began to pool beneath him, his nose again, but this time worse. He coughed and crimson spilled across his lips. Jessica ran to him, fell to her knees beside him, arms wrapped around his shaking frame. "Please," she begged through broken sobs. "Please come back. I've avenged you. Chase is gone. The Song family's assets were frozen. The world knows the truth. The hate is gone. I told everyone. I told them all how you gave up everything for me." He blinked slowly. "I want to go back," she whispered. "I want us to go back. Let's live again. Let me make soup again. Let me learn how to get it right this time. Let me give out everything you gave me." His eyes were glassy, like a lake freezing over. "Ethan," she pleaded, tears streaming freely. "I've punished myself every day since you left. I kept your scarf, your old notes. I wear your ring every night. Let's go home. Let me take care of you." He looked at her for a long time, then said, "Jessica, I don't love you anymore." The wind stopped. She went still, but tears kept falling. Her voice cracked. "But I'm still your wife." Ethan let out a soft breath, one that felt like it carried his whole life. "That's just paper," he said gently. "I'm already free." She lowered her head against his chest. "Then let me walk with you. Let me walk you home." He didn't answer. But he didn't stop her. They reached the edge of Namtso that evening, Ethan's final destination. The sky turned into liquid gold, the mountains stood like ancient sentinels around them. The lake shimmered with sacred silence. Ethan took one last step, knelt, prostrated once, and collapsed. Marco ran to him. Jessica screamed. But Ethan was smiling. His eyes were half closed, breath shallow, face lit by the setting sun. He looked at Marco, then at Jessica. "We made it," he whispered. Marco knelt beside him, gripping his hand tightly, his own eyes red. "You stubborn bastard." Jessica held Ethan's face, whispering, "Please stay." But Ethan's hand was already falling from hers. He looked at the sky one last time. "We cried when we were born." Marco closed his eyes. "But we smile when we say goodbye." Ethan's lips parted slightly, and then he was still. Jessica screamed again, but her voice was carried away by the wind. Marco gently pulled her into his arms, and for the first time, she didn't resist. She buried her face in his chest and sobbed until the stars came out. They laid him to rest beside the lake at sunrise. Marco opened the jar containing Nai's ashes and poured them into the wind, scattering them over the water, fulfilling the promise Ethan made so long ago. Then he took Ethan's remains, wrapped in a ceremonial cloth, and did the same. Jessica watched with trembling hands, her knees buried in the snow. Ethan Lancaster became part of the land he loved. The boy who once got lost. The man who gave everything. The name that would never be forgotten. The live stream of the final walk was replayed worldwide. Millions watched it in silence. No hashtags, no comments, just reverence. His photo, head bowed, forehead to the earth, blood in the snow, became an icon, not of pity, but of peace, and in the final frame, the wind scattered his ashes into the golden light. Final. Ethan didn't die in pain. He died fulfilled. He wasn't a husband, an heir, or a patient. He was a boy who once promised a girl he'd find her mother, and kept every promise until his last breath.